Okay, and welcome to my YouTube channel called The Cookie Club. This video is designed and made specifically for kids who enjoy baking, and today we're going to be doing something delicious and completely nuts. So I want you first of all to go off and wash your hands really well, get your apron on, and then we'll get going. Right, welcome back. I hope those hands are washed and that apron's on. I'd like you to get an adult in the house to put on your oven to preheat it to 160 degrees for a fan oven or 180 degrees for a convection oven. And that way, when you're finished making up your batter, your oven will be nice and hot and ready for you to use straight away. Okay, so get them to do that for you. And also at the end, I'd like you to get your adult to put your cake in and out of your oven. So today we're going to be making a lemon and almond cake. It's one of my absolute favourites. It's really delicious, but of course it has almonds in it, which are a nut. So if there's anybody in your family that can't have nuts, might be best not to do this recipe. Okay, our first ingredients, as with all cakes, are butter and sugar. We're going to use the fine caster sugar rather than the sort of sugar that mummy or daddy might put in their tea or coffee. So my assistant's going to pass me the sugar. Thank you very much. And we are going to mix it up. Right, so the technical term, as some of you will probably already know, for mixing butter and sugar together is creaming. So we're going to cream together our butter and our sugar. Here we go. Now it doesn't take very long to mix it. If you use nice strong arms, really get into the bottom of the bowl, it will only take about a minute to mix it all through, and then maybe another minute to make it nice and creamy. So there we go, it's all mixed in now. I'm going to stir it, make it lovely and creamy. Right, we're going to be using lots of eggs in this recipe today. It asks for 4 eggs. So we've got lots of mixing to do with our eggs. Right, there we go, that's lovely and creamy, as you can see. So let's get some eggs going. So I have my 4 eggs. We need to crack them. My little assistant's pre-cracking them for me. Very helpful. So you'll need to crack them on the side of the workbench like this. And then you pop your thumbs in and pull it out. There we go, that's 3. 1 more, 4. Now you want to do this in a separate bowl so that should there be any shell in the bowl, it'll make it easier to get out than if you were to put it straight in with your sugar and butter. Okay, now we're going to be adding one of them at a time. So I'm going to tip it up and try to add 1. There we go. That's it. Got the white and the yolk in there. So we're going to be giving it a good mix up. There we go. It will start to curdle a little bit as you start to mix it. The faster and stronger you mix it, the less it will curdle. But don't worry too much if it curdles a little bit at the beginning. Just keep mixing and then it should come together. It should emulsify together to create a nice batter. Now then, if I was to just pop 4 eggs in and try to mix it, it would curdle quite a lot, and I would be in a bit of trouble then trying to get it to the right consistency. So what we're going to do is after each egg, we're going to be adding a spoonful of our flour. Okay, just a spoonful. Thank you. So I've got my flour here. I'll grab a spoon and I'm going to add, as you see, just a spoonful of flour each time I add an egg, and that will stop it from curdling. There we go. So that's one egg in there. The next egg, thank you. There we go. Okay. That's it. So give your next egg a good mix in. By the end of this recipe, you'll have really strong arms from doing all this lovely mixing. Now I'm going to add another spoon of flour. There we are. Mix that through and scrape it all down from the sides. You don't want to end up with clumps of flour at the end. So that's still looking a bit curdly, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another spoon before I add my next egg. Okay, and I'm going to go again. There we are. Nice strong mix. That's it. That's nice and smooth. There we go. Another egg, our third egg. Oop. Come on then. There we go. And let's mix that in. There we go. Another spoonful of flour. There we go, and another egg. That's it, that's our last egg.
Should we do
Mix that in. And if you've got any flour left in your bowl,
just tip it all in.
Just tip it all in, that's right. There we are. So let's stir that gently in and make sure to scrape down again from the sides each time you add more ingredients. There we go. Okay, then we need to add our last dry ingredient, which is our almonds. Now, ground almonds look like this, very different from whole almonds. They take the shells off and they take the skins off and then they grind them up, and that's how they look. So we're going to be adding that to our recipe.
The reason you have so much is because this is lemon almond cake.
It is, that's right. It's supposed to taste almondy. And in fact, ground almonds don't have a huge amount of flavour. So what this recipe does, just to make sure you really get the almond flavour, is you put some almond essence in. If you haven't got any almond essence, then just use vanilla. But it is better with almond essence. So if you can get somebody to order that from the shops for you, then that would be better. So there we are. I've added the almonds in, and now it will look a little bit lumpy, but that's just because the almonds are a rough, coarse texture. So the next thing we're going to be doing is adding our almond essence, and we're going to be doing our ½ teaspoon of almond essence. Here we go. That's that. So we'll mix that through first. And then once it looks like it's all mixed in, we'll add our last ingredient. Now, our last ingredient is the lemon part of our cake. So our recipe calls for 2 lemons. Now the lemons I have are huge. Look at that in the palm of my hand. That's huge. Normally lemons are quite a bit smaller than that. So I don't think I need to use 2 of these huge lemons. I probably only need 1 1/2. But if you have more normal, smaller lemons. So if you're a child and it fits inside your hand, then it's probably a small lemon. But this one is a huge one. So we are going to zest the lemon first. And the reason we do that first, I'll explain that later. So I've got here a zester. And what you do is you take your zester and you put it in at an angle, 45-degree angle. And you take some of the zest off of the lemon. Now, underneath the skin, the bright yellow skin, you can see that white stuff. Now, that's called the pith of the lemon. Now, if you were to keep grating, you would get the pith out as well. And the pith tastes quite bitter. So I wouldn't want to use that. You only want to use the yellow bit. So just keep going around your lemon, just with one scrape. Now, if you don't have a zester, doesn't matter, you can use a grater. So this is a grater. Now, most graters have a wide grate and a small grate. And what you would want to do is use the small grate. So I'll find a bit I haven't used.
And if you don't feel comfortable using either of these, then you can just ask an adult to help you with it.
That's right. If you heard my assistant there, if it feels a bit sharp and Mummy's not very, or Mummy, Daddy's not very happy with you using it, then they could of course help you. Or maybe an older brother or sister could help you with this. But if you hold it nice and carefully, there's no reason that it should cut your fingers. Just make sure that you don't scrape your knuckles along the grater, because that will be sore and it will graze your knuckles. But if you keep your knuckles well away and your fingers well away and just grate the lemon, you shouldn't have too many problems.
Because we don't want any chopped off fingers.
No, that's right. We don't want any chopped off fingers. For one thing, they're not very tasty. Right, so I have about 1.5 lemons here worth of zest. And I'm going to be adding that into our bowl. And then we need our lemon juice. So, don't cut up your lemon until... Put that down, please. Don't cut up your lemon until after you have zested it. If you cut it up first, you'll get the lemon juice all over your hands. It'll be much more difficult. So once you have zested it, I then want you to cut it in half. Now, I've got a child-safe knife here. You could just use a normal dinner knife, but you mustn't use anything too sharp if you're not allowed to use sharp knives, okay? If you're under the age of 12, you probably shouldn't be using a sharp knife. So just use a child-friendly knife.
Again, if you're super concerned about hurting yourself, ask an adult.
Absolutely. If you're super concerned, you must get an adult to help you. Okay, so we are going to be squeezing that lemon. Look at all that lovely juice in there. We're going to be squeezing it into our bowl here very carefully. Now, you can squeeze it directly into your mixing bowl, but sometimes what can happen is the pips, there's a pip, they fall out and they go into your mix, and they're very difficult to see because they're the same sort of colour as your mix, and sometimes you leave them in and then somebody bites into it, which is not very nice. So if you do it into a little bowl first, then you can carefully with a little spoon fish out any pips that are in there. And sometimes there'll be lots of pips and sometimes you might not have any.
Like
and
we don't.
And then you can add it to your mix. So let's bring our mix back. I'm going to slowly add it. So I'm going to add that half a lemon to it, and then I've got a little bit more that I squeezed out earlier from another lemon, and I'll add that in a moment. Let's just mix this in first. So I'm mixing in the zest, which once it's cooked tastes very nice, but I wouldn't advise eating it before it's cooked because it tastes quite bitter. There we go. Mix that in and then add the other lemon's worth of lemon juice. There we go, and gently mix that in. You don't want it all splashing up over the sides. I've used quite a nice deep mixing bowl for this. There we go. And that is just about done. I'm looking off to the side and double checking that I haven't got any more ingredients. So if you lay out all your ingredients first, then by checking on the side to see if you have any ingredients left that you haven't used, will mean that you don't end up putting your cake in the oven and having forgotten your eggs or something.
If you don't have a big enough bowl straight away, then you can just then you can just go to the cupboard, pick out another one, and then pour your mix into the bigger bowl.
Absolutely, you could do that. If you accidentally use a bowl that's too small, you could transfer it over to a bigger bowl. Right, okay, that's all mixed in and looking super yummy. So take that off to the side. Now then, we need a tray. At the beginning, you should have seen the size. This is it here. It's about, I don't know, about 20 by 23, something like that, centimetres. And I have put some baking parchment on the bottom. If you were to use a smaller tray, say a square tin or a round tin, it will just mean you have a deeper lemon cake. That's absolutely fine. It will just take slightly longer to cook, that's all. But if you put it in a tray, like this, then it will be slightly quicker to cook. Right, okay, so I've got my baking parchment in my tray. Now I'm going to put my ingredients in. Here we go. Now you want to make sure you scrape off all of the sides, because it's much nicer to have all of your mixture in your cake rather than throw it away in the bin or in your dishwasher.
Otherwise, especially in this time, you're wasting quite a lot of ingredients, and at this time some ingredients are very crucial.
That's right, and they're hard to come by. You don't want to waste them. Right, okay, so I'm going to lay out the mix here. And I'm going to go all the way to the edges. I'm going to try not to get all my mix on top of the edge of the cake tin. Just going to go around the edges, because then it will burn those edge parts and it won't look quite as pretty. There we go. And I'm going to make sure it's about the same depth all the way over, so that when it's in the oven, it all takes the same amount of time to cook. Scrape off your spoon, get all that lovely mix in there. There we go. There we are. There we go. So that's all done. It's all in my tray. It's all even. Now I'm going to pop it in the oven. Now it's going to take a varied amount of time to cook depending on the exact size of your tray. So this is going to take about 40 minutes to cook, but it might take slightly longer. So I'm going to check it after about 35 and see how it's doing. And to check it, if you remember, we poke a skewer in, and if it comes out clean, then it's ready. And if it comes out a little bit sticky, you need to put it back in the oven for another 5 minutes or so. So I'm going to pop that in the oven, and I'm going to come back later and I'll tell you exactly how long it took to cook. And remember, get your parents to put it in the oven. Right, so that took 35 minutes to cook, and I've taken it out of the oven very carefully, and now it's cooled down, so it's okay to touch. I checked it with my skewer before I took it out to make sure that there was no cake batter on the end of the skewer. It was all good. And now I've just gone round the very edge of the tin with a blunt knife just to release it from the edges all the way round. And then what I'm going to do is turn this tray over, and you might want to get an adult to help you with this, only because it's a bit big, and flip it over. There we go. Give your tin a little tap, and because we had a sheet of paper on the bottom, it shouldn't have stuck. Oh look, I cut a little bit off. Well, that's a shame. I might just have to eat that. Delicious. Right, so that is our beautiful lemon and almond cake. Now once you've done this, it doesn't need icing or anything. It's really lovely just on its own. And what you might want to do is cut it up into nice slices. So depending on how big a slice you like to eat, I will probably cut it up like this. And then maybe in half that way, so you get a nice slice of cake like that. And how beautiful is that cake? Absolutely delicious. Well, I hope you've enjoyed making this lemon and almond cake with me, and that you'll join me again for another baking delight. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.